I sat on the edge of my bed, the late afternoon sun filtering through the curtains, casting warm, golden patches across my room. In my hands was an ancient photo, frayed around the edges and yellowed with age. My mother had handed it to me earlier that day, a relic from her own high school days. She had looked nostalgic, her eyes glimmering with memories as she spoke about the friends she once had. But as I examined the picture, the smiling faces of teenagers frozen in time, I felt an inexplicable chill run down my spine. "Anna, I found this in the attic," she had said, brushing a hand over the dusty frame. "I thought you might like it. It's from my senior year. Look, there's me." She pointed to a younger version of herself, a bright-eyed girl with a cascade of dark curls and a wide smile. "And that's Sarah, my best friend. And over there, oh, who could forget Tom? He was such a jokester." But as I looked closer, my heart raced. There, to the right of my mother, I noticed a shadow. It was subtle, almost blending into the background, but it was undeniably there, a dark shape that seemed out of place among the joyful faces. I tilted the photo this way and that, trying to catch a better angle, but the shadow remained, as if it were watching me. "Mom!" I called, my voice trembling slightly. "What's this?" I pointed to the shadow, my finger hovering over the photograph. She leaned over, her brow furrowing as she squinted at the image. "I don't remember that," she said slowly, her voice laced with confusion. "That's strange. I never noticed it before. Do you think it's an old camera flaw?" I asked, trying to dismiss the unease creeping into my chest. "Maybe," she replied, though her eyes darted back to the photo, uncertainty etched on her face. "Or perhaps it's just a trick of the light. You know how old photographs can be." I nodded, but deep down, I felt a stirring of curiosity mixed with dread. "I'm going to find out more about this photo," I declared, the determination in my voice surprising even myself. Later, as I walked to school the next day, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I clutched the photo tightly in my backpack, the weight of it a constant reminder of the shadow that had captured my attention. At school, I found Clara sitting at our usual lunch table, her head buried in a book. "Hey, Clara," I said, sliding into the seat across from her. "You won't believe what I found." She looked up, her hazel eyes sparkling with interest. "What is it?" "This photo of my mom from high school," I began, pulling it out of my bag. "But there's this weird shadow on the side. I think it might be something important." Clara leaned in closer, her brows knitting together. "Let me see," she urged, her voice low with intrigue. I handed her the photo, watching as her expression shifted from curiosity to concern. This is odd," she murmured, tracing the outline of the shadow with her finger. "Do you think it's an alibi for something? Like, maybe it's a ghost or something?" I shook my head, a mix of skepticism and fascination swirling in my mind. "I don't know, but it feels significant. I need to find out more." "Why don't we go to the library?" Clara suggested, her eyes alight with excitement. "If there's a story behind this shadow, it's probably buried in the records somewhere. You know, like the old newspaper clippings or yearbooks." I nodded, a plan forming in my mind. "Yeah, let's do it. There might even be something about the school's history or any tragedies that happened. I want to know what this shadow means." The library was a labyrinth of knowledge, and as we stepped inside, the familiar scent of old books enveloped us. We made our way to the history section, scanning the spines of dusty tomes and faded encyclopedias. Clara pulled out a book about the history of our town, flipping through pages until she found a chapter dedicated to the school. "Look at this!" she exclaimed, her finger landing on a paragraph. "It talks about a fire that happened here decades ago. It says it was caused by a short circuit in the wiring, but there are rumors that it was more than just an accident." My heart raced. "What do you mean?" "It says here that some people believe there were unresolved tensions among the students, like rivalries and secrets. Maybe this shadow is connected to that," Clara speculated, her excitement palpable. I leaned in closer, curiosity piqued. "Can you find more about it? I want to know everything." Clara nodded enthusiastically and began flipping through the pages. There might be some newspaper articles or something in the archives. Let's check there next. We made our way to the archives, the air thick with dust and the weight of forgotten stories. As we rifled through the stacks, I stumbled upon a worn-out newspaper clipping, its headline bold and dramatic. Tragic fire claims young lives at local high school. My hands trembled as I read the article, detailing the fire that had devastated the school and the lives lost that day. Anna, come here. Clara called out, her voice echoing off the walls. I hurried to her side, where she held an old diary, its leather cover cracked and faded. Look what I found. This could belong to one of the victims. My heart raced as I took the diary from her hands. Let's see what it says, I urged, carefully opening the fragile pages. The handwriting was neat and elegant, filled with the everyday thoughts and dreams of a teenager long gone. As we read, the entries painted a vivid picture of life before the tragedy. A world filled with laughter, friendships, and the intensity of young love. But as we delved deeper, we stumbled upon a passage that made my stomach churn. Today, I saw him again. The way he looked at her, it drives me mad. The diary entry read, "This rivalry is tearing us apart, and if he doesn't stop, I don't know what I'll do." What do you think this means? Clara whispered, her eyes wide. I think it's about the love triangle that people mentioned in the rumors, I replied, piecing the clues together. This rivalry, perhaps it had something to do with the fire. Clara's face lit up with realization. And that shadow in your mom's photo could be tied to it. Maybe it's not just a coincidence. I nodded, feeling the weight of history pressing down on me. We need to find out more about this rivalry and what happened. Who were these students? As we continued to read, we discovered a name that resonated with me. A name tied to a local urban legend about a forbidden love that ended tragically. I felt a shiver run down my spine. Clara, we have to talk to someone who was around back then. Maybe an ex-student or a teacher can shed some light on this. Absolutely, Clara agreed, her enthusiasm infectious. Let's start asking around. We might be able to uncover the truth behind the shadow. The thought of uncovering secrets long buried excited me, but it also filled me with apprehension. What if we uncovered something that was never meant to be found? What if the shadow was a warning? As we left the library, clutching the diary and the newspaper clipping tightly, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being drawn into a web of mystery. A mystery that could change everything I thought I knew about my family and my town. I sat cross-legged on the floor of my bedroom, the late afternoon sun filtering through the curtains and casting a warm glow on the old photograph I held in my hands. It was a picture of my mother's high school class, taken decades ago. She had given it to me with a nostalgic smile, reminiscing about friendships and memories that felt both distant and intimate. As I examined the smiling faces, something caught my eye. A shadow lurking at the edge of the image, just to the right. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it sent a chill down my spine. "Mom, what is this?" I whispered to myself, leaning closer to inspect it. The shadow was a dark blotch, an anomaly in an otherwise cheerful photo. I felt an odd sense of foreboding wash over me. I couldn't shake the feeling that this shadow was more than just a trick of the light or a flaw in the photograph. Later that day, I met Clara at our usual cafe, my mind still preoccupied with the strange discovery. She was already seated at our favorite corner table, her laptop open, headphones in, and a half-finished latte beside her. I slid into the seat across from her, unable to contain my curiosity. "Clara, you won't believe what I found in an old photo my mom gave me." I started, my voice tinged with excitement and unease. "What did you find?" she asked, pulling her headphones down to her neck, her eyes widening with interest. "There's this weird shadow in the corner," I explained, pulling out my phone to show her a picture I had taken of the photograph. "I mean, look at it. It's like, it doesn't belong." Clara squinted at the screen, her expression shifting from intrigue to skepticism. "Maybe it's just a camera glitch or something. You know how old photos can be, right? They get damaged over time." I thought the same thing, I admitted, biting my lip as I felt my heart race. But it doesn't feel like that. I think it might be connected to something else. Something more. More? She echoed, leaning back in her chair, a teasing smile creeping across her face. Are we talking about ghosts now, Anna? Not ghosts, but there's this legend about a fire that happened in our school years ago, I said, my mind racing. What if the shadow is connected to that? Clara raised an eyebrow, her teasing demeanor softening. You really think so? That sounds a little dramatic. Maybe, I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. But I can't shake the feeling that there's something important here. I need to know more. After our conversation, I couldn't rest. The following day, I made my way to the local library, a place that had always felt like a sanctuary for me. The scent of old books and polished wood welcomed me as I entered, and I headed straight for the history section. I had a mission, and I wouldn't leave until I uncovered more about the fire. Hours passed as I combed through various archives, my heart racing with every snippet of information I unearthed. Then, amidst stacks of dusty books, I stumbled upon a newspaper clipping, its edges yellowed with age. The headline read, "Tragic Fire Claims Lives of Local Students." My breath caught in my throat as I read the details. A short circuit had sparked the flames, but whispers of foul play lingered in the air. Anna, is everything okay? The librarian's voice brought me back to reality. I looked up to see her watching me with concern. Yeah, I'm fine. Just researching something, I replied, trying to sound casual, though my heart was pounding. Just be careful with those old papers, she cautioned before returning to her desk. I returned to the clipping, my mind racing. What could have caused such a tragedy? The article mentioned several victims, but there were no names, only vague references to the beloved students lost in the fire. I needed more than this. I needed names, stories. As I continued my search, my fingers brushed against something unexpected. A leather-bound diary wedged between two thick volumes. Its cover was worn, and I felt a pull to open it. Carefully, I flipped through the pages, and as I read, my heart raced. The diary belonged to one of the fire's victims, a girl named Emily. Clara, you have to see this, I exclaimed, pulling out my phone to call her. I found a diary. It's from one of the students who died in the fire. Really? That's incredible. I'm on my way, she replied, her excitement matching my own. When Clara arrived, I was already deep into the diary, the words spilling secrets that had long been buried. Listen to this, I said, reading aloud. Emily wrote about her friends, her classes, and there's something about a rivalry between two boys. It sounds intense. Clara leaned in closer, her eyes scanning the pages. What kind of rivalry? It says here that they were both in love with the same girl, I explained, my voice low, and it led to all sorts of drama. I wonder if it had anything to do with the fire. Wait, do you remember that urban legend about the fire? Clara asked, her brow furrowing. There was a rumor that one of the boys was involved in a love triangle that ended badly. I nodded, feeling a shiver run down my spine. What if this rivalry is connected to the fire? What if the shadow in the photo is tied to all those unresolved feelings? Clara's eyes lit up with realization. We need to dig deeper. We need to find out who these boys were and what really happened. Determined to uncover the truth, we spent the next few days gathering information about the students mentioned in the diary. We reached out to ex-alumni, hoping to find someone who could shed light on the rivalry and the events leading up to the fire. Each conversation revealed more layers to the story, whispers of love and betrayal that resonated within the walls of our school. The deeper we dug, the more we uncovered, a tangled web of emotions that seemed to have fueled the tragedy. As I pieced together the fragments of the past, I couldn't help but feel a growing sense of urgency. The shadow in the photograph, once a mere curiosity, now felt like a reflection of the secrets that had been hidden for far too long. The truth was out there, and I was determined to bring it to light. I sat cross-legged on my bedroom floor, surrounded by a chaotic mess of old books and papers. The dim light from my desk lamp illuminated the faded photograph that my mother had handed me just a few days ago. It was a picture of her high school class, a time capsule of laughter and innocence frozen in time. I ran my fingers over the smiling faces, but my eyes were drawn to the right side of the image, where an odd shadow loomed, dark and formless, as if it belonged to another world. "What is that?" I whispered to myself, my heart racing. Was it just a trick of the light, or something more sinister? I felt a chill slither down my spine as I tried to shake off the unsettling feeling that had begun to creep in. The shadow seemed to call to me, whispering secrets of the past that I was not yet ready to understand. The next day, I met Clara at our usual coffee shop. We settled into our favorite booth, the smell of freshly brewed coffee mingling with the scent of baked goods. I slid the photo across the table, my fingers trembling slightly. "Look at this," I urged, watching as her brow furrowed in confusion. "What am I looking at?" she asked, tilting her head as she examined the image. "That shadow, what do you think it is?" Clara squinted, then shrugged. "It could just be a weird lighting effect. You know how old photos can be." "I don't know," I replied, biting my lip. "It feels like more than that. I mean, this photo is from the time of the school fire, right? What if it's something or someone?" She raised an eyebrow. "You think it's an hallucination? Anna, you're getting a little too deep into this. It's just a shadow." "Yeah, but what if it's not?" I pressed, my voice barely above a whisper. "What if it's connected to the fire? What if it's a ghost or something?" "Okay, now you're really freaking me out," Clara laughed, but I could see the concern in her eyes. "Maybe we should just drop it. Whatever happened back then, it's in the past." But I couldn't let it go. The shadow felt like a puzzle piece that was just out of reach, and I was determined to uncover its meaning. That evening, I made my way to the local library, a place that had always held a certain charm for me. The smell of old books and the quiet rustle of pages turning felt like home. I wandered through the aisles until I found the section dedicated to local history. Flipping through dusty archives, I stumbled upon a newspaper clipping that sent a shiver through me. The headline read, "Tragic Fire Claims Lives of Local High School Students." The article detailed the events of that fateful day, how a short circuit had ignited a blaze that consumed the building, trapping students inside. My heart raced as I read the names of the victims, each one a reminder of the lives cut short and the families left behind in grief. "Anna," Clara's voice broke through my thoughts, and I turned to see her approaching, a concerned look on her face. "What did you find?" "Look at this." I handed her the clipping, my voice barely steady. "They wrote about the fire. It was caused by a short circuit, but..." I paused. "There are rumors that it was more than just an accident." Clara scanned the article, her brow knitting together. "What kind of rumors?" "I don't know," I admitted, feeling a mix of excitement and fear. "I think we need to dig deeper." I spent the next few hours combing through the library, and it was then that I found it. An old, leather-bound diary tucked between the pages of a forgotten book. My heart raced as I opened it, revealing the delicate scrawl of one of the fire's victims. "Clara, you have to see this," I called out, my voice bubbling with anticipation. She rushed over, peering over my shoulder as I flipped through the pages. "This belonged to one of the students?" she asked, her eyes wide with intrigue. "Yeah, it's about their life, what they were going through," I replied, my voice tinged with awe. "They were just kids, Clara. They had dreams, crushes, everything." As we read further, we stumbled upon a name that sent a jolt through me. "Wait, this name, Elliot. I've heard that before. There's a local legend about him." "Elliot," Clara echoed, her curiosity piqued. "What's the story?" I took a deep breath, trying to recall the whispers I had heard over the years. "He was involved in some kind of love triangle. There were rumors of a fierce rivalry between him and another guy, all because of a girl they both liked. It was intense, and I think it had something to do with the fire." "Like, you think this love triangle caused the fire?" Clara asked, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Maybe," I said, biting my lip. "What if their passion and jealousy led to something terrible? We need to learn more about this rivalry." Clara nodded, determination etched on her face. Let's talk to some ex-students. They might have more insights. The next day, we set out to find anyone who could shed light on Elliot and his rivals. We visited the local diner, a popular spot for former students to gather and reminisce. As we walked in, the familiar smell of greasy food and coffee enveloped us, and the sound of laughter filled the air. "Excuse me," I said to an older woman behind the counter. "Do you know if there are any former students here who might remember the fire?" She nodded and pointed to a table in the corner. "You might want to talk to them. They were in school around that time." With our hearts pounding, we approached the table. "Hi, do you mind if we join you?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Sure, have a seat," one of the men replied, his voice gruff but friendly. "We're researching the fire that happened years ago," Clara explained, her eyes bright with curiosity. "Do you remember anything about it?" The man's expression turned somber. "Yeah, it was a tragedy. I lost friends that day. Do you remember Elliot? Or any rivalry that might have been going on?" I asked, leaning closer, my heart racing. The man nodded slowly. "Elliot was involved with a girl. Her name was Mia. But there was another guy, Jake, who was also after her. Their rivalry was intense. It was like a storm brewing." Clara and I exchanged glances, the pieces of the puzzle starting to fall into place. "What happened?" I pressed, feeling the gravity of the conversation. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It all came to a head the week of the fire. There were fights, arguments. No one really thought it would end in such a tragedy. But that day, it was chaos. Do you think the fire was an accident?" I asked, my voice trembling with anticipation. He looked at me with a mixture of sadness and regret. Many of us believed it was set. There were whispers that it was revenge or a way to scare one of them. But it got out of control. It was like a game that turned deadly. As we listened to him, I felt a weight settling on my chest. The shadow in the photo was no longer just a shadow. It was a representation of the secrets they had buried, the pain they had tried to forget. I couldn't shake the feeling that the past was reaching out to me, begging to be acknowledged. "This shadow," I said quietly, almost to myself, "it's not just a trick of the light. It's everything that happened, every secret that was left unresolved." Clara gave me a knowing look. "It's like they're all still here, trapped in that moment. We need to honor them, Anna." I nodded, feeling a sense of purpose rise within me. We had to uncover the truth, not just for ourselves, but for the souls who had been lost and for those who still carried the pain of their memory. The shadow was a reminder that some stories need to be told, and I was determined to share theirs. I sat on my bed, the soft afternoon light streaming through the window as I examined the old photograph my mother had given me. It was a snapshot from her high school days, a captured moment of laughter and camaraderie. The faces in the picture smiled out at me, but my attention was drawn to something peculiar at the edge, a strange shadow lurking just out of sight. My heart raced as I leaned closer, squinting at the faded image. It was as if the shadow wanted to whisper secrets, secrets buried beneath layers of time. "What do you think it is?" I wondered aloud, tilting the photo this way and that, searching for any clue. I couldn't shake the feeling that it meant something important. Later that day, I met Clara at our favorite cafe. The clink of cups and the murmurs of students filled the air, but my mind was elsewhere. I slid the photograph across the table, my fingers lingering on the edge. "Look at this. Cool pic," Clara said, glancing at it briefly before her gaze caught the shadow. "What's that?" "I don't know," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "I found it in my mom's old things. There's something strange about it. Maybe it's just a trick of the light?" Clara suggested, shrugging. "Or an hallucination. You know how old photos can be." "No, it feels different," I insisted, an urgency building inside me. "It feels like it's trying to tell me something." Clara leaned back, considering my words. "All right then, what are you going to do about it?" "I think I need to find out more about the fire," I said, recalling snippets I'd heard from my parents. A tragic event that had claimed lives years before I was born. "I'll go to the library tomorrow." The next day, I walked into the library, the musty scent of old books wrapping around me like a familiar blanket. I made my way to the local history section, feeling an electric thrill at the idea of uncovering the past. I began rifling through the archives, my fingers tracing the spines of dusty tomes and forgotten newspapers. Finally, I found a crumpled newspaper clipping tucked between two books. My breath caught in my throat as I read the headline, "Tragic School Fire Claims Lives." The article detailed how a short circuit had sparked the flames, but as I read on, I noticed the murmurs of something darker hidden within the text. There were rumors, it mentioned casually, that not everything was as it seemed. My heart raced again. What did that mean? I continued reading, absorbing the names of the victims, each one a life cut short. "Anna, check this out." Clara's voice broke through my thoughts, and I turned to see her holding an old, leather-bound diary. "Where did you find that?" I asked, intrigued. "It was just lying on the shelf. I thought it looked interesting," she said, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. Together, we settled into a quiet corner, flipping through the pages. The handwriting was elegant, and the entries revealed snippets of school life, friendships, and heartaches. Then, we stumbled upon a name that made my pulse quicken, a name that resonated with a local urban legend about a passionate rivalry that had erupted between two students. "Do you think this could be related to the fire?" Clara asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I think it has to be," I replied, feeling a thrill of excitement mixed with apprehension. "We need to dig deeper. Let's talk to some of the ex-students who knew them. Maybe they can shed light on this rivalry." As we set out to uncover the truth, I felt the weight of my own life pressing down on me. My grades had been slipping, and my parents were oblivious to my growing obsession with the past. They had their own expectations, and I was struggling to keep up. "Anna, you look stressed," Clara said one day as we sat together in the library. "Are you okay?" I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "I don't know, Clara. I'm scared that if I find out the truth about the fire, it could change everything. What if it's something dark? What if it affects my life and my relationships? Sometimes, the truth is hard, but it's better than living in the dark," she replied, her voice steady. "You can't let fear stop you from discovering what really happened." Taking a deep breath, I nodded. "You're right. We need to know. Let's visit the site of the fire. I need to see it for myself." The next weekend, Clara and I stood in front of the empty lot where the school had once stood. Now it was just a patch of overgrown grass and scattered debris. A chill ran down my spine as I stepped onto the grounds, the air heavy with history. "Do you feel that?" Clara asked, her eyes scanning the space. "It feels different here. It feels heavy," I replied, my heart pounding, "like something is watching us." As we explored, I spotted something on the ground. I bent down, brushing away the dirt to reveal charred marks etched into the earth. "Look at this," I whispered, my fingers tracing the lines. "It's like the ground is telling a story. Do you think we should do something? Like a memorial?" Clara suggested, her voice filled with reverence. I hesitated, a knot forming in my stomach. What if we invoke something? What if the spirits of the victims don't want to be disturbed? Clara looked at me, her expression serious. "We have to honor them, Anna. They deserve that." I could see the conviction in her eyes, but fear gripped me. What if we were meddling with forces beyond our understanding? The thought of awakening something we couldn't control made my skin crawl. "I don't know, Clara. Maybe—" I trailed off, anxiety rising within me. "We'll figure it out together," she said firmly, squeezing my hand. "Whatever it is that happened here, we have to acknowledge it." As we stood there, surrounded by the remnants of a tragedy long past, I couldn't shake the feeling of being drawn deeper into a web of secrets. The weight of the investigation loomed over me like a storm cloud, and I knew that uncovering the truth could alter everything I thought I knew about myself and my family. With a heavy heart, I turned to Clara and whispered, "Let's do this, but we have to be careful. We're treading on sacred ground." The air was thick with a mix of nostalgia and an unsettling chill as I sat cross-legged on the floor of my room, an old photo in my hands. My mother had given it to me just a few days ago, and I could still hear her voice echoing in my mind, recounting the stories of her youth, of laughter and friendships forged in the halls of our local school. The photo depicted a group of students, their faces beaming with youthful exuberance, but there was something else lurking in the corner of the image. A shadow, dark and elongated, hovering to the right. I squinted, trying to make sense of it, convinced that my mind was playing tricks on me. "Hey, Clara," I called out, my heart racing with a mix of excitement and dread. "You have to see this." Clara appeared in my doorway, her brow arched in curiosity. "What's up? You look like you've seen a ghost or something." I held the photo up, and her eyes widened. "What is that?" she asked, leaning closer. "Is that a shadow?" "Yeah," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what it is. It just seems wrong. Almost like it doesn't belong there." Clara studied the picture for a moment longer, then shrugged. "Maybe it's just a weird lighting effect? You know how old photos can be. Or maybe it's something more," I countered, a chill running down my spine. "I mean, this photo is from the time of that tragic school fire, right? What if it's a sign?" "Anna, you're being dramatic. It's probably just a coincidence. But if you want, we can look into it. Find out more about the fire and the students who were there." Her suggestion resonated with me. I felt a pull, an insatiable need to uncover the truth behind the shadow and the tragedy that had marred our town. "Let's go to the library," I said, determination edging into my voice. "I need to know more." The local library was a stone building that had seen better days, much like the memories it housed. I felt a thrill as we stepped inside, the scent of old books enveloping us. Clara and I made our way to the local history section, and I began rifling through the dusty volumes, searching for anything related to the fire. After what felt like hours of flipping through pages, I finally stumbled upon a yellowed newspaper clipping. The headline read, "Tragic School Fire Claims Lives of Students," and my heart sank as I scanned the article. It detailed the incident. A short circuit had sparked the flames, but the last line caught my eye. Rumors swirl regarding the circumstances leading up to the fire, hinting at a deeper story. I turned to Clara, my voice shaky. "Look at this. It wasn't just an accident. There's more to it." Clara leaned over my shoulder, her brow furrowing as she read the clipping. "What do you think it means? Like maybe someone was involved?" "I don't know, but I need to find out." I could feel the shadow from the photo creeping back into my mind, a reminder that I was not just uncovering a story, but possibly touching upon something that had long been buried. Suddenly, something caught my eye on the shelf beside us. A small, leather-bound diary lay partially hidden among the books. I reached for it, feeling an odd connection to it as I opened the cover. The handwriting was delicate, filled with youthful longing and mundane details about school life. "Anna, what did you find?" Clara asked, peering over my shoulder. "It's a diary," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "It belongs to one of the students who died in the fire." As I read, the words painted a vivid picture of life before the tragedy. The entries were filled with friendships, crushes, and the trials of teenage life. But as I flipped through the pages, I noticed a recurring name, Evelyn. The name sent a shiver down my spine. I'd heard whispers about Evelyn in the context of the fire, but I didn't know much. Clara leaned closer, her curiosity piqued. "Do you think she was involved in the rivalry everyone talks about?" Clara wondered aloud. "Maybe," I replied, my mind racing. "There's something here about a love affair. It seems like there was a lot of drama surrounding her and another student. I think we should investigate this further." We decided to reach out to ex-students who might remember more about the events leading up to the fire. I felt a mix of trepidation and excitement as we gathered information, each conversation peeling back another layer of the past. One afternoon, we met with an ex-alumnus at a small cafe, hoping to get more insight into the dynamics of those fateful days. As we sipped our coffees, he leaned forward, his eyes filled with the weight of memories. "Evelyn and Tom were inseparable," he said, his voice low. "But they were also caught in this intense rivalry with another group of students. It was all so childish, but it got out of hand. The fire, it wasn't just an accident. It felt like a culmination of all that tension. My heart raced as I listened, the pieces of a larger puzzle falling into place. So you think their love was part of what led to the fire? Definitely. There were whispers of jealousy, fights, and then the fire happened. It was like a perfect storm of emotions. The more I heard, the more I began to see the shadow in the photo as a representation of the unresolved secrets and pain that lingered long after the flames had died. The stories of the students, their dreams and heartbreaks, were now intertwined with my own journey of discovery. As Clara and I continued to dig deeper, I found myself grappling with the pressure of my academic life. My grades were slipping, and my parents had no idea about the late nights spent researching, the conversations with ex-students, or the weight of the tragedy that now felt so close to me. "Anna, you need to focus on school," Clara said one evening as we studied together, her voice gentle but firm. "You can't let this consume you." "I know, but what if uncovering the truth is more important? What if it helps me understand the shadow?" I felt a knot in my stomach, the fear of what I might find pushing me forward. Clara placed her hand on mine, her eyes sincere. "I get it, but you can't lose yourself in this. Just promise me you'll take care of yourself. Okay?" "I promise," I whispered, though deep down, I knew I had to chase this truth, no matter the cost. We agreed that we needed to visit the site of the fire, now a vacant lot overgrown with weeds. It felt like the next logical step in our investigation, a way to connect with the past. As we approached the site, an uneasy feeling settled in my stomach. The air felt heavy, as if the ground itself was burdened with the weight of grief and regret. "This place is eerie," Clara said, her voice barely above a whisper as we stepped onto the property. It was like we could feel the presence of the past, a palpable reminder of what had once been here. I nodded, taking a deep breath as I looked around. The remnants of the old school were long gone, replaced by the wild growth of nature reclaiming the space. But as I walked further into the lot, something caught my eye. There, partially hidden beneath the overgrown grass, were dark stains on the ground, marks that looked like they had been burned into the earth. "Clara, look," I called, kneeling down to examine the ground more closely. "These marks, they look like they tell a story." She knelt beside me, her expression serious. "What do you think they mean?" "I don't know," I admitted, my heart racing. "But it's like they hold the memories of what happened here. We need to honor these souls." Clara's eyes lit up with an idea. "What if we organize a memorial? Something to remember them by?" A chill ran down my spine at the thought. "I don't know, Clara. What if it brings them back? What if it invokes something we can't control? Or maybe it'll help us find closure," she countered gently, her voice soothing. "We can honor their memory without invoking anything negative. They deserve to be remembered." I hesitated, torn between the urge to pay homage to the lost souls and the fear of awakening something from the shadows. "Okay, let's think about it," I finally agreed, though a part of me remained uneasy. As we left the site, the weight of the past hung over me, the shadows whispering secrets I wasn't yet ready to face. I knew we were on the precipice of something monumental, but the path ahead felt fraught with danger. I couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows of the past were watching, waiting for me to uncover the truth. The nights had become increasingly restless for me, a tapestry woven of shadows and whispers that echoed in my mind long after I closed my eyes. It all began after I first discovered the old photo of my mother's high school class, the one that held the ghostly presence of a shadow lurking at its edge. I couldn't shake the feeling that the shadow was more than just a trick of light. It seemed like a harbinger of secrets waiting to be unearthed. "Anna, you look like you haven't slept in days," Clara remarked one afternoon as we sat in the library, the scent of aged paper and dust mingling in the air. I had been rifling through the pages of a dusty old diary, the words of a girl who had lived decades before me. "Are you okay?" I glanced up at Clara, her brow furrowed with concern. "I don't know, Clara. It's just this photo and the things we've been discovering. I can't stop thinking about it. I feel like I'm being pulled into something I don't fully understand." Clara put her hand on mine, her touch grounding me. Maybe it's just your imagination. Shadows can play tricks on your mind. You're under a lot of pressure with school, and now this. No, I insisted, shaking my head. It's more than that. I can feel it. It's like the past is reaching out to me, wanting to tell its story. That night, as I lay in bed, sleep evaded me like a fleeting ghost. The shadows in my room danced along the walls, twisting and turning as if they were alive. I shut my eyes tightly, trying to block them out, but they only grew more vivid. In my dream, the shadow from the photo took on a form, a figure cloaked in darkness yet oddly familiar. I could hear a soft voice calling out to me, a whisper that felt like a thread pulling me closer to the truth. Anna? I felt a chill run down my spine as I opened my eyes in the dream, the world around me blurred and indistinct. Who's there? I shouted, my voice trembling. Listen, the voice urged, echoing with an urgency that sent shivers through me. You need to know what really happened. The figure stepped closer, and I could see a face emerging from the shadows. Familiar, yet distant. It was a girl, her features delicate and haunting, the kind that lingered on the edge of my memory. Who are you? I asked, my heart racing. I'm one of them, she replied, her voice a soft melody that resonated in the stillness of the night. One of the lost souls. You've seen me in your photograph. You need to understand our story. Why me? I questioned, feeling both terrified and drawn to her presence. What do you want from me? Closure, she whispered, her eyes filled with a sorrow that pierced through the veil of my fear. We were bound by love and tragedy. You must uncover the truth before it consumes you. With that, the dream shifted, and I found myself standing in the ruins of the school, the air thick with smoke and the cries of my classmates ringing in my ears. I ran through the halls, the walls crumbling around me, searching for something I couldn't quite grasp. In a moment of clarity, I saw her, the girl from the photo standing amongst the flames, reaching out for me. Help us, she cried, her voice drowning in the chaos. You can't let our story fade away. I woke up with a start, my heart pounding like a drum in my chest. The morning sun filtered through the curtains, casting a warm glow that felt at odds with the chilling remnants of my dream. I sat up, my mind racing, trying to piece together the fragments of what I had just experienced. Anna, are you okay? Clara's voice broke through my thoughts as she poked her head into my room, concern etched across her face. Not really, I admitted, shaking my head. I had the strangest dream. The girl from the photo. She was there, and she was trying to tell me something. It felt so real, Clara. Clara stepped into my room, her expression shifting to one of intrigue. What did she say? I paused, gathering my thoughts. She said I need to uncover the truth about what happened during the fire, that it wasn't just an accident. She mentioned something about love and tragedy. Maybe it's a sign, Clara suggested, her eyes sparkling with excitement. You're getting closer to the truth. We should investigate more. The idea sent a thrill of determination through me. I felt a renewed sense of purpose. You're right. I can't ignore this. I need to find out what really happened. That day, I found myself back in the library, surrounded by the musty smell of old books and the weight of history pressing down on me. The diary I had found earlier was open on the table, its yellowed pages filled with the musings of a girl whose life had been cut short. I began to read again, searching for any clues that could help unravel the mystery. Anna, look at this, Clara called out, her finger tracing a particularly poignant entry. She wrote about a rival who was obsessed with her. Do you think it's related to the fire? Maybe, I mused, my mind racing. If this rivalry was intense enough, it could have led to something catastrophic. But why would that result in a fire? Perhaps it was accidental, Clara suggested, her brow furrowing in thought. Or maybe someone wanted revenge. The thought sent a shiver down my spine. What if it was more than just a rivalry? What if the love between the two students we read about was at the center of all this? Do you think they knew something? Clara asked, her eyes widening with realization. I think we need to talk to more people, find out if anyone remembers them, if they were involved in something deeper, I replied, the urgency of the situation igniting a fire within me. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The shadows in my room seemed to stretch and shift, forming shapes that danced just out of my line of sight. I closed my eyes, willing myself to sleep, but instead, I found myself slipping back into the dream world where the girl awaited me. Anna, she called again, her voice soothing yet urgent. You're not finished. You need to dig deeper. Why me? I implored, feeling the weight of her gaze. What more can I do? The truth is buried in the past, and you alone can bring it to light, she replied, her form flickering like a candle in the wind. You must confront the shadows of the past if you wish to set us free. As her figure began to dissolve, I felt a surge of fear. Wait, how do I do that? Follow the love, she whispered, her voice fading into the darkness. It will guide you. I awoke with a start, my heart racing, the weight of her words pressing heavily on my chest. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a golden light that warmed my face. I knew what I had to do. Clara, I called, leaping out of bed and throwing on a shirt. We need to get back to the library and find out more about the students involved in that rivalry. I could hear Clara's footsteps rushing down the hall, her excitement palpable. I'm ready. Let's go. As we dove back into our research, I felt a strange sense of connection to the shadows and the stories they held. It was as if the girl from my dreams was guiding me, pushing me to uncover the truth that had lain dormant for far too long. Anna, look at this, Clara exclaimed, her finger pointing at a newspaper clipping that had slipped between the pages of a book. This mentions the rivalry and hints at some kind of secret meeting between the two students. My heart raced as I read the clipping. They were meeting the night of the fire. They had plans to run away, but something went wrong. What if someone found out? Clara's eyes sparkled with revelation. Then it could have led to a confrontation, something that escalated beyond their control. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together, and I could feel the presence of the girl from my dreams urging me on. We have to find out more about their families. Maybe someone knows what really happened. With a renewed sense of purpose, we delved into researching the families involved, gathering information from old yearbooks and local records. I felt the weight of the past pressing down on me, but with every piece of information we uncovered, I could sense the shadow lifting, revealing a clearer picture of the tragedy that had unfolded. As I lay in bed that night, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. The shadows that had once seemed so ominous now felt like a protective embrace, guiding me toward the truth. I closed my eyes, hoping for another dream, another glimpse into the world beyond the ordinary. Help us? The voice echoed in my mind, a reminder of the mission that lay before me. I was determined to uncover the truth, to honor the memories of those lost in the fire, and to finally bring light to the darkness that had haunted me for so long. The air was thick with anticipation as Clara and I sat in the small cafe across from the library, our minds still buzzing from the discoveries we had made that day. We had spent hours poring over the diary of one of the victims of the tragic fire, the words on the pages revealing a world of emotions and secrets that had long been buried. The names of the students, their lives, their loves, and the bitter rivalry that had ensued were etched into my mind. But one name seemed to resonate louder than the others. Lily. Can you believe it? Clara said, her voice barely above a whisper. All this time, we thought we understood what happened, but it was all so complicated. I nodded, staring into my half-finished cup of coffee. Lily was caught in the middle of it all. We have to find out more about her. Do you think we can talk to her sister? Clara suggested, her eyes sparkling with excitement. She might know something about the love story between Lily and... what was his name again? Jake, I replied, recalling the details from the diary. He was the one who was supposed to reconcile with her. I can't shake the feeling that their story is crucial to understanding what truly happened that night. With a sense of determination, we decided to search for Lily's sister, who was rumored to still live in town. We gathered our things and headed back to the library, hoping to find a clue that would lead us to her. As we walked past the rows of dusty books, Clara turned to me. "Do you think it's possible that the fire wasn't an accident? That it had something to do with their relationship?" "I don't know," I admitted. "But the more we uncover, the more I feel like we're getting closer to something big. Something that could change everything." After what felt like hours of searching, we found a local newspaper article that mentioned Lily's sister, Hannah. It detailed how she had moved away after the tragedy, but there was a small mention of her returning to town occasionally. The article gave us a lead. She worked at a local flower shop. "Let's go there," I suggested, my heart racing with the thought of finally piecing together this tragic puzzle. Clara and I navigated through the familiar streets, the smell of blooming flowers wafting through the air as we approached the quaint little shop. It was charming, with a wooden sign hanging over the door that read, "Petals and Blooms." As we stepped inside, the bell above the door jingled, and we were greeted by the sight of vibrant flowers arranged in beautiful bouquets. A woman in her late 20s stood behind the counter, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, surrounded by an explosion of colors. "Can I help you?" she asked, wiping her hands on her apron, a curious look in her eyes. Are you Hannah?" I stammered, suddenly feeling nervous. She raised an eyebrow, her expression shifting to one of surprise. "Yes, I am. Do I know you?" "No, but..." I hesitated, glancing at Clara, who nodded encouragingly. "We're researching the fire that happened years ago at the old school, and we found your sister's name in a diary. We were hoping to talk to you about Lily." At the mention of her sister's name, Hannah's expression softened, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of pain in her eyes. "Lily, it's been a long time since I've thought about her. We just want to understand what happened," Clara interjected gently. "We think there's more to the story than people realize." Hannah sighed deeply, her shoulders slumping as if the weight of the past was pressing down on her. "I suppose if you're looking for answers, I can share what I know. But it's a painful memory. Anything you can tell us would be a huge help," I urged. "We want to honor Lily's memory and the other victims." With a reluctant nod, Hannah led us to a small table at the back of the shop. We sat down, the flowers around us creating a strange juxtaposition of beauty and sadness. "Lily was my younger sister," Hannah began, her voice barely above a whisper. "She was always so full of life, dreaming about the future, about love. But she got caught up in something darker." "What do you mean?" I asked, leaning forward, eager to hear more. "There was a rivalry between two boys at school, Jake and Mark," Hannah explained, her eyes clouding with memories. "They both liked her, and it turned into this intense competition. I thought it was just typical teenage drama, but looking back, I see how it affected all of us. Lily was torn between them. Did she ever tell you how she felt?" Clara asked, her voice gentle. Hannah shook her head. "Not really. She would just smile and say she was fine. But I could see it in her eyes. The way she looked at Jake, and then the way she felt guilty about Mark. It was a mess." "Did she ever mention anything about feeling unsafe?" I pressed, a nagging feeling in the back of my mind that there was more to this story. "Not directly," Hannah said, her brow furrowing. "But I remember one night, she came home late after a party. She seemed different, scared even. I asked her what was wrong, but she brushed it off, saying it was just the usual drama at school." Clara exchanged a glance with me, and I felt a chill run down my spine. "What happened next?" I asked, my voice almost trembling. Hannah took a deep breath, her fingers gripping the edge of the table. "The night of the fire, she left the house without telling me where she was going. I had a bad feeling, but she was 17 and determined to live her life. I didn't want to smother her." "Do you think she was meeting Jake?" I asked, my heart racing. "I don't know," Hannah replied, shaking her head. "But I do remember that they were supposed to meet that night. I heard them talking about it before she left. I just thought it was a normal teenage crush." A silence fell over us, heavy with unspoken words. I could feel the weight of the tragedy pressing down on us. the shadows of the past creeping in. What about Mark? Clara asked slowly. Where did he fit into all of this? Hannah's expression darkened. Mark was troubled. He had a temper, and I think he couldn't handle the idea of losing Lily to Jake. There were rumors that he was involved in some reckless behavior, and it escalated quickly. Do you think he could have done something to her? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I don't know, Hannah said, her eyes glistening with tears. But I always wondered if he was somehow involved in the fire. I just couldn't prove it. It's been years, and I still think about it every day. I'm so sorry, I said softly, feeling a deep sense of empathy for her. We want to find out the truth. We believe that the truth matters, not just for Lily, but for all the victims. Hannah looked at us, a mix of sadness and gratitude in her gaze. I hope you find the answers you're looking for. Lily deserves to be remembered, and maybe this will help put her story to rest. As we left the flower shop, my mind raced with everything Hannah had shared. The pieces were falling into place, but the picture was still far from complete. Do you think Mark really had something to do with the fire? Clara asked as we walked down the street. I don't know, I replied, my heart heavy with uncertainty. But I can't shake the feeling that there's a connection between the rivalry and the tragedy. We need to dig deeper. Clara nodded, determination shining in her eyes. Let's see if we can find out more about Mark. Maybe there are other ex-alumni who can shed light on what happened. Good idea, I said, feeling a sense of purpose swell within me. It's time we uncovered the truth, no matter how painful it might be. For Lily, for all of them. As we walked into the fading light of the day, I couldn't help but feel that we were being guided by the shadows of the past, urging us to seek justice for those who could no longer speak for themselves. The weight of the truth bore down on me like a suffocating blanket as I sat on my bed, staring blankly at the wall. My room was a mess, books scattered everywhere, remnants of my research piled high, notes filled with frantic scribbles and half-formed thoughts. I had been on this quest for weeks now, hunting for answers about the tragic fire that claimed so many lives, and yet I felt as if I was still standing in the dark. The more I uncovered, the more lost I became. Anna, you okay? Clara's voice broke through the silence, her head popping through the door. She was the only one who truly understood the rabbit hole I had fallen into, the only one who didn't look at me with confusion and concern when I spoke of shadows and secrets. I'm fine, I replied, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace. Just a little overwhelmed. Clara stepped into the room, her brow furrowed. You've been saying that for weeks. I'm worried about you. You're not sleeping, your grades are slipping, and you've practically become a hermit. She gestured around at the chaos. What's going on? I sighed, running a hand through my hair. I can't shake the feeling that there's something I'm missing, Clara. The more I dig, the more I feel like I'm getting pulled under. I paused, collecting my thoughts. It's just the fire, the victims, the shadows in that photo. It's all connected, and I need to find out how. Clara sat down beside me, her expression softening. You know it's okay to take a break, right? You don't have to solve everything at once. You're not responsible for their pain. I wanted to believe her, but I could feel the weight of their stories pressing down on my chest. You don't understand. I can't just walk away. I owe it to them to find out the truth, to honor their memories. What if the fire wasn't an accident? What if someone was involved? Clara's eyes widened. You really think that? After everything you've uncovered? I don't know, but the more I read about the rivalry, the more I feel like there's something sinister lurking beneath the surface. I ran my fingers over the pages of the diary I had found, feeling the rough texture of the paper beneath my fingertips. I keep having these dreams, Clara. The shadow in that photo, it feels like it's trying to tell me something. Maybe you should talk to someone about it, Clara suggested gently. A counselor or... No! The word burst from me, sharper than I intended. I can't let anyone else in on this. Not yet. It's too personal, too raw. I need to figure this out myself. Clara nodded slowly, her gaze focused on the floor. Okay, But promise me you'll take care of yourself. You're my best friend, and I hate seeing you like this." "I will," I said, but I knew deep down that I was spiraling. The pressure from my schoolwork was mounting. My parents were starting to notice my slipping grades, and I felt as though I was teetering on the edge of a cliff. Every time I thought about the upcoming tribute I had planned for the victims, a knot twisted in my stomach. What if it all backfired? What if I uncovered something that shattered everything I thought I knew? That night, I lay in bed, the darkness creeping in around me. I tried to push the thoughts away, but they clawed at my mind, relentless and unforgiving. I closed my eyes, hoping for a moment of peace, but sleep eluded me. Instead, I was met with visions of flickering flames and anguished faces, the shadows morphing into figures I couldn't quite grasp. The figure that haunted my dreams was becoming more familiar. I could almost make out its features now, the way it moved, like it was trying to communicate something important. "What do you want from me?" I whispered into the darkness, my heart racing. And then, in the depths of my dream, I heard a voice, a soft, melodic whisper that sent chills down my spine. "Find the truth, Anna. You must understand." I woke with a start, my heart pounding, the remnants of the dream fading like smoke. The words echoed in my mind, pulling me back to the diary, back to the stories of the victims who never got a chance to tell their side. I needed to honor them, to give them a voice. The next day, I met Clara at the coffee shop. The smell of fresh brew filled the air, but it did nothing to settle my nerves. "I'm going to go through with the tribute," I said, my voice steady but my heart racing. "I need to do this." Clara looked at me, her expression a mix of concern and support. "Are you sure? You've been having those dreams, and I don't want you to get hurt. I can't turn back now. I've come too far." I took a deep breath, gathering my resolve. "I want to honor them, Clara. I want to bring their stories to light, even if it's painful." "Okay," Clara said, her voice softening. "I'll support you no matter what. Just promise me you'll take it one step at a time." "I promise," I replied, though I wasn't sure how I would manage that. The pressure continued to mount, a constant weight on my shoulders. My grades were slipping, and my parents were starting to question why I was so distracted. I could feel their disappointment in every sharp glance and every sigh when they looked at my report card. "Anna, we need to talk," my mom said one evening as I sat at the kitchen table, trying to focus on my homework. "Your grades are slipping, and I'm worried about you. Is there something going on?" "I'm fine, Mom," I replied, forcing a smile. "Just a lot of schoolwork." "Are you sure? You've been acting different lately. You can talk to us, you know?" Her eyes were searching, trying to pierce through my facade. "I just have a lot on my plate," I said, my voice tight. "Can we not do this right now?" She sighed, her disappointment palpable. "Anna, we want what's best for you. Just remember, you don't have to carry everything alone." I nodded, but inside I felt like I was drowning. I could see the worry in her eyes, but I couldn't bring myself to explain. How could I? The truth was tangled in shadows and whispers, and I was terrified of what it might reveal. As the days passed, the dreams grew more intense. The shadow became more than just a figure. It was a presence, a weight that pressed against me, urging me to uncover the truth. I felt as though I was standing at the edge of a precipice, peering into an abyss that threatened to consume me. One evening, Clara and I sat in my room, surrounded by the chaos of my research. "I think we should do something special for the tribute," I suggested, my voice hesitant. "Maybe a candlelight vigil or something to honor their memories." Clara nodded, her eyes lighting up with enthusiasm. "That's a great idea. We could invite everyone from school, share stories, maybe even read excerpts from the diary." "Yeah, I like that," I replied, but a flutter of anxiety twisted in my stomach. But what if it brings up too much? What if people start asking questions? Then we answer them. "You're not alone in this, Anna. We can face it together," Clara assured me. As we discussed details, a part of me felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this tribute could be a way to connect the past and the present, a a bridge to understanding the pain that had been buried for so long. But another part of me remained wary, haunted by the shadow that loomed over my dreams, whispering secrets I wasn't ready to face. That night, sleep came easier, but the dreams still lingered, the shadow now a constant companion, urging me to listen. "You will find the truth," it whispered, its voice now familiar, like a friend trying to guide me through the darkness. The day of the tribute arrived, and I felt a mix of excitement and dread swirling within me. The school auditorium was decorated with candles flickering softly, creating an atmosphere of reverence. I stood backstage, my heart pounding as I watched students and families gather, their faces a blend of curiosity and sorrow. "Are you ready?" Clara asked, her voice steady but filled with concern. "I think so," I replied, though doubt gnawed at my insides. As I stepped onto the stage, the lights dimmed, and silence enveloped the room. I took a deep breath, my heart racing as I faced the crowd. "Thank you all for being here today. We gather to remember those we lost, to honor their stories, and to bring light to the shadows that linger in our hearts." As I spoke, I felt the weight of their memories surrounding me, a presence that urged me to continue. I shared snippets from the diary, the stories of love and loss, of dreams cut short by tragedy. The room was silent, the air thick with emotion, and I felt the connection between the past and present deepening. But as I looked out into the sea of faces, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to shift, that the shadows I had been grappling with were ready to reveal as I stood in front of the makeshift memorial we had created. A cascade of emotions washed over me. The flickering candles illuminated the faces of my classmates, their expressions ranging from somber to curious, while the gentle hum of whispered conversations danced in the air. I could feel the weight of their gazes upon me, like invisible hands pushing me forward. Today was the night we honored the victims of the tragic fire, and I was about to share everything I had discovered. Clara stood beside me, her presence a steadying force amid the turmoil swirling within. "You've got this, Anna," she whispered, squeezing my hand. "Just speak from your heart." I nodded, though my heart raced like a runaway train. I took a deep breath, the cool night air filling my lungs, and stepped forward to the makeshift podium we had crafted from old crates. Thank you all for being here tonight," I began, my voice trembling slightly. I glanced down at the flickering candles, their flames dancing in the breeze, seemingly eager to hear what I had to say. "We're gathered here to remember not just the tragedy that occurred, but the lives that were lost, the dreams that were extinguished far too soon." As I spoke, I could feel the shadows creeping in around me, almost as if the memories of those lost were wrapping themselves around my words. I had researched the fire for weeks, peeling back layers of stories and secrets that had long been buried. Each discovery had led me closer to the truth, but also deeper into a world I hadn't expected. A world filled with heartache and unfulfilled love. "I found an old diary," I continued, my voice gaining strength. "It belonged to one of the students who perished in the fire. In its pages, I uncovered not just their daily lives, but a story of love. A love that faced opposition and ultimately, tragedy." A hush fell over the crowd, their attention now fully captured. I could see Clara nodding encouragingly from the corner of my eye. The diary spoke of a rivalry, a fierce battle between friends that turned bitter. It was a rivalry that left hearts broken and souls lost. But what struck me the most was the love that persisted despite the chaos. It was a love that sought to bring light into darkness, but ultimately, it was snuffed out. I looked up, meeting the eyes of my classmates. Some of them were visibly moved, while others seemed to be grappling with the weight of the history I was unearthing. This fire wasn't just an accident. It was a culmination of emotions, of fears, and of unresolved conflicts. It was a reminder that what lies beneath the surface can sometimes be more dangerous than we realize. As I spoke, I felt a strange presence lurking just beyond the edge of my vision. The shadow from the photo I had examined weeks ago seemed to flicker at the periphery of my mind, a ghost of unresolved stories urging me to continue. I know this is difficult to hear, but we must remember that the people we've lost had hopes and dreams just like us. They were not just victims. They were friends, lovers, and siblings. My heart raced as I prepared to delve into the details of the love story I had uncovered, the forbidden romance that had been at the center of the rivalry. But just as I was about to speak, I noticed a figure moving through the crowd. My stomach dropped as I recognized him. The ex-student I had interviewed, the one who had seemed so friendly and willing to share his memories. "Anna," he called out, his voice cutting through my thoughts like a knife. "Wait." I hesitated, confusion and dread swirling within me. I had spoken to him just days ago, and he had shared his memories, albeit with a tinge of sadness. But now, there was something in his tone that sent chills down my spine. Clara shot me a worried glance, and I could feel the tension in the air thicken. "Just a moment," I said, trying to keep my composure. "I'm in the middle of... I need to tell them the truth," he interrupted, stepping closer. His eyes darted around the crowd, as if searching for something or someone. "You don't know everything, Anna." The murmurs among the crowd grew louder. Curiosity piqued as they turned their attention to him. I felt my heart pounding in my chest. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, but I could hear the tremor in it. He took a deep breath, his expression shifting from anxious to resolute. "The fire, it wasn't just an accident. There were choices made, choices that led to everything that happened that night." "What are you talking about?" I pressed, my pulse quickening. The weight of what he was saying hung heavily in the air, and the flickering candlelight cast long shadows that danced ominously around us. "I was there," he confessed, the words tumbling out in a rush. "I was part of it. The rivalry, the fights, it all spiraled out of control." His voice cracked, revealing a vulnerability I hadn't seen before. "I was trying to protect someone I cared about, but in the end, I don't know what happened. I just know that the fire consumed everything." A murmur of disbelief rippled through the crowd. I felt my breath hitch in my throat as I tried to process his words. "But what do you mean you were trying to protect someone? Who?" He hesitated, his gaze dropping to the ground. "My sister. She was in love with one of the victims. I thought I could stop everything from getting worse, but instead, I made it all worse." I felt the ground shift beneath me, the weight of his confession pressing down like an anchor. "You're saying that you caused the fire?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "No," he blurted out, his eyes wide with desperation. "I didn't mean for it to happen. I just wanted to stop the fighting, to protect her. But things got out of hand, and it all went to hell." The crowd was silent, the air thick with tension. I could feel the shock rippling through my classmates as they processed the gravity of what he was saying. My mind raced, pieces of the puzzle I had been trying to solve beginning to click into place. "Anna, please," he pleaded, stepping closer, his voice low. "You have to understand. This isn't just a story. It's real, and it's haunted me ever since." I felt the tears prick at the corners of my eyes, the weight of his regret hanging heavily in the air. "And what about the love story?" I asked, my voice trembling. "What about the people who died?" He shook his head, anguish etched on his face. "They were caught in the crossfire of a war that should never have existed. I thought I could control it, but in the end, we all lost. I lost my sister's trust, and they lost their lives." I could see the pain in his eyes, the regret that twisted his features into something raw and vulnerable. And in that moment, I realized that the shadow I had been chasing, the darkness that had haunted my dreams, was not just a representation of the tragedy. It was the embodiment of the secrets that bound us all together. As the crowd shifted uncomfortably, I felt a surge of empathy. "You're not alone in this," I said softly, stepping closer to him. "None of us are. We all carry the weight of what happened that night, but we can't let it define us. We have to honor their memory by facing the truth, no matter how painful." His gaze met mine, and for a fleeting moment, I saw a glimmer of hope. "Do you think we can?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I nodded slowly, feeling the shadows recede just a little as the light of understanding began to break through. "We have to try. For them." With that, I turned back to the crowd, feeling the energy shift, a collective realization settling over us all. The truth, however painful, had to be acknowledged. And as I looked into the faces of my classmates, I knew that together, we could begin to heal the wounds of the past. In that moment, the darkness felt less daunting, and the shadows that had once loomed over us began to fade, replaced by the warmth of shared understanding and the promise of a new beginning. As night fell, the cool breeze whispered through the trees surrounding the empty lot where the memorial was set to take place. I stood at the front, my heart racing, feeling the weight of every gaze upon me. The flickering candles cast dancing shadows, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I saw that familiar shadow from the photo flickering at the edge of my vision. But I shook it off. Tonight was not about me. It was about them, those lost souls trapped in the flames of a tragedy I had spent months uncovering. "Anna, are you ready?" Clara asked, her voice barely above a whisper as she stood beside me, her own hands trembling slightly as she held a candle. "I think so," I replied, though uncertainty gnawed at my insides. "I just hope I can do this without breaking down." "You'll be amazing. Just speak from the heart. You've worked so hard for this," Clara encouraged, squeezing my shoulder. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing thoughts. As I stepped toward the makeshift podium, the murmurs of the crowd quieted, and I felt a sense of unity among us. Strangers brought together by shared grief and unresolved questions. I glanced around, spotting familiar faces, the ex-students I had interviewed, their expressions a mix of sorrow and anticipation. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw him, the tall, dark-haired man I had spoken to weeks ago. His name was Mark, and he had seemed so earnest during our conversation. But tonight, there was something unsettling about the way he stood there, slightly apart from the rest. His eyes locked onto me with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. I cleared my throat, forcing myself to focus. "Thank you all for being here tonight to honor those we lost in the tragic fire so many years ago." My voice trembled, but I pressed on. As many of you know, I've been researching the events surrounding that terrible night, trying to understand the lives of the students who were taken from us. They were not just victims. They were people with dreams, hopes, and stories that deserve to be remembered. As I spoke, I could feel the atmosphere change. A heaviness settled over the gathering, and I noticed whispers beginning to ripple through the crowd. I glanced at Clara, who looked just as bewildered as I felt. Something was coming, an energy, a shift that rattled me to my core. "Tonight, I want to share what I've discovered," I continued, my heart pounding. "The love, the rivalry, the secrets that led to that fateful night. It was a tragic accident? Or was it?" My voice echoed, and I felt my pulse quicken. What if the truth is more complicated than we've been led to believe? Suddenly, I felt a cold draft sweep through the area, extinguishing a few candles. Gasps echoed from the crowd, and I instinctively took a step back, my heart racing. That's when I noticed Mark moving forward, his expression shifting from passive interest to something darker, more intense. "Wait," he called out, his voice breaking through the murmurs. "Anna, you shouldn't." I froze, the fear gripping my throat. "What do you mean?" I managed to stammer, confusion clouding my thoughts. "Please," he urged, his tone growing urgent. "You don't know everything. You have to listen to me." He stepped into the light, and I could see the desperation etched on his face. "Mark, what are you talking about?" Clara interjected, stepping protectively beside me. "What do you know?" He hesitated, glancing at the crowd before taking a deep breath. "I was there that night. I saw things that you don't understand." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd, and I felt my stomach drop. "You were there," I echoed, my mind racing back to all the interviews, all the stories. "But you said you were..." "I lied," he interrupted, his voice rising. "I didn't want anyone to know. I didn't want to be blamed." "Blamed for what?" My voice came out sharper than I intended, a mix of anger and fear coursing through me. "What are you trying to say?" "Listen, please," he pleaded, his eyes darting around as if searching for an escape. I didn't mean for it to happen. I was trying to protect her. My girlfriend. She was one of them, one of the victims. But it spiraled out of control. The crowd murmured, and I felt the weight of their eyes on us. Curiosity mixed with disbelief. What do you mean, protect her? I pressed, my heart racing. What happened? Mark glanced at the ground, his face pale. There was a rivalry, a love triangle. Two couples tangled in secrets and jealousy. My girlfriend was caught in the middle. I thought it would be harmless, just a prank to scare them. I never meant for it to go this far. My breath caught in my throat. You're saying it was you? You caused the fire. The realization hit me like a punch, the pieces of the puzzle snapping into place with a terrifying clarity. I didn't mean to, he shouted, his voice cracking. I was young and stupid. I thought it was just a game. But it turned into something that got out of control. I didn't know the wiring was faulty. I didn't know it would go up in flames. I just wanted to scare them, to show them that they couldn't have her. He paused, tears glistening in his eyes. I loved her. I was trying to protect her from the humiliation of being with someone else. The crowd was silent, every eye on him, every heart aching with the weight of his confession. And then, panicked, I ran. I thought I could fix it. But by the time I realized what was happening, it was too late. I couldn't save her. I felt my own heart shatter at his words, the reality of it all crashing down upon me. The shadows of the past were not just the memories of lost lives. They were the echoes of choices made in desperation. Love twisted into something dark and tragic. Mark, you have to tell them what you just told me, I urged, stepping closer, my voice softening. You can't keep this bottled up. They deserve to know the truth. He shook his head, panic rising in his eyes. No, I can't. I'll be blamed. They'll hate me. Maybe they need to hate you, I said, the determination swelling inside me. Maybe they need to understand that this wasn't just an accident, that there were real people involved, real emotions at play. You owe them that. The crowd shifted, murmurs of agreement rippling through them. I could see the confusion, the anger, the sadness on their faces. They wanted answers, answers that had been buried for far too long. Mark, please, I urged again, my voice barely above a whisper. You can't run away from this. You have to face what you did. It's the only way you can truly honor her memory. He looked at me, the conflict raging in his eyes, and for a moment, I thought he might refuse. But then, something shifted. The tension in his shoulders eased slightly, and he took a deep breath, stepping forward. I'll tell them, he said, his voice barely audible. I'll tell them everything. The crowd held its breath as he began to speak, the truth pouring from his lips like a torrent. I stood there, my heart aching for him, but also for all the lives intertwined in this tragedy. The shadows that had haunted me, that had danced in the corners of my dreams, were finally coming to light. They were no longer just the remnants of a past I couldn't grasp. They were the echoes of lives lived, loves lost, and lessons learned the hard way. As he spoke, I felt the weight of the world lift slightly off my shoulders. The truth was raw and painful, but it was also liberating. We were finally facing the darkness that had lingered for so long, and in that moment, I understood. The shadows were not just reminders of loss. They were also a call to remember, to honor, and to heal. Somewhere in the midst of it all, I caught Clara's eye, and she nodded, a small smile breaking through her tears. We had come here to uncover the past, to confront the shadows, and while the journey had been fraught with pain and uncertainty, it had also brought us closer together. As Mark finished his story, the crowd erupted into a mixture of gasps, sobs, and murmurs. The atmosphere shifted again, but this time it felt different, charged with a sense of release, of catharsis. The weight of the past was still there, but now it was accompanied by the hope of healing. I felt the familiar shadow fade from my vision, replaced by the warmth of the candles flickering in the night. The spirits of those lost were still present, but they were no longer just victims of a tragedy. They were part of a larger story, one that we were finally beginning to understand. And as I stood there, surrounded by the living and the memories of the departed, I realized that while the past could not be changed, the future was still ours to shape.